This is part 7 of the Craftsman Emerson Gen 4 Rebuild series. If you haven't seen part 6, click the link at the top of the screen. In this video, we're going to be prepping parts for paint and cleaning the panels. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff and welcome to my shop. We got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. So in part 6, we started masking off parts for paint and we're just continuing that process. This is the base and we're just cleaning out the column bores in the base with a bottle brush, and then we're masking those 3 bores off inside the base. And I want to get paint in between those bores, so the area, I'm not masking the entire hole all the way through. I'm masking each one of those individual bores. So I'm just showing how I clean up the extra tape and whatnot. If you've seen my other videos, this is pretty much the same process I use for just about every drill press that I repaint. Here we have the head, and there are a lot of bores here. And every single one of them's got a little surface rust on it now. So cleaning all of those out is quite a process. And once we get them cleaned out, then we'll be masking every single one of those bores off. The head casting, for obvious reasons, requires the most amount of work as far as masking and bore cleaning. But most of your bores in the head, well, the 2 spindle pulley bores and the column bores are all a little bit wider than 1/2 inch, maybe 5/8 of an inch. So I'm taking this 1-inch tape and basically cutting it a little bit more than halfway down the center of it, and then lining those up and getting them into those bores. And that's the top bore. So there are 2 bores for the spindle pulley, and then there are 3 more below that the quill rides in. And then we have 2 for the column. And this is the bottom of the head. Now I'm masking off one of the quill bores, and then we've got the 2 lock bores, one on each side, and then there are 2 bores for the hub pinion assembly. So once we've finished masking everything off, it's time to go ahead and start priming stuff. And for the primer, I just used this Rust-Oleum self-etching primer. And I'm just priming these parts that you see hanging here. Most of these didn't require any type of masking. I'm trying to be aware of where the camera is so you can actually see some of this, but I also don't want to get it too close to my paint booth. I don't want to get paint on my camera. And these are the column collars. And this is the motor mount and the motor frame. And this is the hub. Again, that's the motor frame. And sorry about the camera not showing everything in the center of the screen, but this is the stator for the motor. Now I've got a Lazy Susan that I'm just spinning it on. It'll make it easier to paint. Now I finally moved the camera, so this is the head casting, obviously. And when I'm doing the head, I like to try to do as much of the inside as possible first and then do the outside. I've already started this piece and done most of the top side of it. It's upside down right now. And I usually let stuff sit for about a half an hour and then I can flip it over. By then the primer is already dried. This is the stator again. We're doing the other side of it. And this is the table. And just like with the head casting, I like to do the inside of that column bore first and then get the rest of it. A lot of weird angles here, so take your time and just make sure you've got, everything completely covered. And this is the base. Again, like I said, I like to do the column bore first and then we'll do the rest of it. Nothing too crazy here, just going through a lot of those cans. So I had some lint on here from when I had towel dried it originally. And I'm using this brush to get that lint off of there. And then we can continue with priming it. But yeah, if you get lint, you're going to want to remove it during the priming stage, definitely not in the painting stage. And a lot of this cast iron is fairly rough on the finish, so there's a lot of lint that will cling to it, depending on what kind of rag you're using when you go to dry it off. And I wiped them all down with that brush beforehand, but apparently a lot of it stuck to it. So we'll set all that aside and let it prime for the next day or two. Here we are with the panels, and that's what we're going to do for the rest of this video. This is the back side of the hub panel, and I sprayed it with WD-40. And I've been watching a lot of videos where people remove tape and residue with WD-40, and it seems to work out good for them, so I figured, what the heck, we'll give it a shot. And I'm not sure it really helped with releasing that. I think I was just able to get that scraper up under it and release it. But We're going to pull it the rest of the way off with that paper towel because it's got WD-40 on it and it's very slippery. But you can see that they used 3M double-sided tape or whatever back then, and that's how we're going to reapply it. So now we've got some residue on that back side and we need to remove that residue. So I'm going to use, this is the Meguiar's cleaner wax, and the residue that's on this back side is not tacky. If it was, I would have used some more WD-40 or Goo Gone, but yeah, I let this sit on there for about 15 minutes and then I just buff it off of there, and it cleans up the back side of that aluminum just fine. And all we're trying to do is just get it cleaned up so that when we stick tape to it later on, it doesn't get hung up on anything. So now we're going to clean the top side of it. And again, we're just using that Meguiar's cleaner wax. And we'll apply this to the panel, and then we're going to let it sit for 15 minutes. So we'll just set that aside. And 15 minutes later, we're going to come back with a ShamWow and buff it off of there. And I can't do anything about the indentions on there. Those looks like pitting, but it's aluminum, so it's not rust. Somebody probably just sat there with something and tapped on it incessantly for no good reason, but the rest of it looks pretty damn good. So with these Gen 3s and Gen 4s, a lot of the panels have this clear film on them, and it probably was that kind of film like you get on a new TV screen or whatever, where you can just peel it off when they came new. But a lot of people didn't peel it off. So now it's adhered on there like it's glue. And I tried scraping it off and it wasn't coming off. So I decided, all right, screw it. We're going to soak this in some acetone. And that acetone will take off everything probably, and I'll just redo the lettering with some vinyl graphics later on. So I'm soaking this in acetone, and we're going to put some cellophane over the top of it so the acetone doesn't dry, and we're going to let that sit overnight. And then when we come back tomorrow, it'll probably be a completely blank panel, but we'll see. In the meantime, this is the back side of the head panel that goes to the belt cover. And it's got a residue on there where double stick tape had been used to adhere it. And we're trying the WD-40 with the scraper to see if that's going to pull all that off. And it's pulling a good amount of it off. You can see it kind of piling up on the end of the scraper there. And gelifying. After we cleaned it off, then we went and tried to get the rest of it off with some Goo Gone. And we'll just apply that and let it sit for 5 minutes or so, and then we'll come back and try to scrape it and see what kind of results we get there. So after we scraped it, we came back and just hit it with a Scotch-Brite pad. And so I think the Goo Gone and the WD-40 work about the same. So whichever one you've got, use. So this is the front of that panel, and we're going to go ahead and clean it up with the cleaner wax. So we'll apply that and let it sit for 15 minutes. And this cleaner wax is completely safe on these panels. I've never had a panel where it started to remove paint. It's always been safe on everything that I've worked on. So highly recommend it. So 15 minutes later, we're back at this panel, and we've got another ShamWow, and we're just going to buff it off. And you can see it does a really good job of cleaning these panels up and making them shine. Now I have a friend on Garage Journal. His username on Garage Journal is Matt Blast, and he can reproduce the graphics for any of these. If you've got one of these that the panel is missing, or the graphics are missing, or they've got paint on them and you can't get them clean or whatever, he can reproduce those for you. He can even attach them to aluminum. So here we are back at the switch panel. And it's been 24 hours. And what do you know? That clear film is coming right off of there. Just sheeting right off of there. And it looks to me like it didn't even damage the graphics. They're all completely intact. That's impressive. I've never tried that before, and man, I wish I had figured this out a long time ago, because here we are with the side panels, and they've got that clear film on them as well. Now, if I soak these and it takes away those graphics, I'm going to have to pay Matt to reproduce them for me. But I'm willing to try it to see if it's going to work, and I have a feeling that we're going to be good to go. So we're going to go ahead and soak these two side panels in acetone for 24 hours. Pour the rest of that in there. And then we'll add some more. Now, off camera, after I poured this, I put both of these inside a plastic bin, because they don't have a high enough wall for me to put cellophane over the top of them. It would drape into the acetone. And here we are 24 hours later. And what do you know? Exactly as I hoped. The clear film is just sliding right off of them. And the graphics are completely fine. Man, I wish I had figured this out 2 years ago when I started working on my first Gen 4. All right, cool. So my process now is I'm going to soak these suckers for 24 hours in acetone, remove the clear film, and then I rinse them off with soap and water just to neutralize any remaining acetone that's on them. I don't want it to damage the graphics. But holy cow. I'm just completely blown away by that worked. I'm so pleased with that. Man, there's a couple spots that need a little help, but yeah, 90% of that clear film just slides right off of there. So you don't need to do this if you don't have that clear film on your panels. If it's not on there, then don't bother soaking them in acetone. But if it is on there, go for it. Man, awesome. So next we're going to clean up this model number panel, the switch panel, and the scale. Now, I end up doing something different with the switch panel overall later on, but yeah. So again, we're just using the cleaner wax. We're going to apply it and let it sit for about 15 minutes. Then we'll come back and buff it off. I'm still blown away by the acetone and the clear film removal. That's so cool. Y'all have no idea. I've worked on probably 4 or 5 Gen 4s, commercial models, as well as the standard models, and several of them I couldn't remove that clear film, and it was yellowing, and it was partially removed in some areas, and I ended up just spraying a clear coat over the top of it to try to even it out, but was never really happy with the results. So the fact that I can now remove that stuff with the acetone, that's pretty cool. So here's the model number panel, and we're just buffing that cleaner wax off after 15 minutes. And these on the Gen 3s and the Gen 4s are usually pretty clean anyways, because they sit on the back side of the head casting and the motor sits over them, so there's usually not a whole lot that gets done on that back side, so they're always in pretty good condition. And that cleaned up really well. So here we are at the switch panel again. And I'm not very happy with how it looks, though. I mean, yes, we got the clear film off of there, but you know, there's a bunch of, I don't know what you call it. I mean, if it was steel, I would say it's rust, but it's aluminum, so it is whatever it is. And I don't like the way it looks. And this is, you know, the one thing that really stands out on the face of the head casting. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to sand that sucker down, get rid of all that lettering and everything, and then make a graphic to go over it, a vinyl graphic. And I even end up taking off a little bit of that last F on off here, which is what sealed the deal for me. I was like, all right, I guess we're removing all of that now. So that'll be in video 8. And this is the scale that goes on the side of the head casting. And we're just buffing it off now. It looks pretty good. So that's one of the differences between the commercial model and the standard model. The standard model is in 1/16 of an inch, and the commercial model is in 32nds of an inch for the scale. Well, that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. I appreciate all of the support that you guys give me. And video 8 will be coming soon, and we will be painting, and we'll figure out what we're going to do with that switch panel. So until then, I will see you guys next time.